Hey everybody, it is Plan Your Greatness and I am your gracious host, Carlton Hamilton. And let's get started today. Today is Turn Up Tuesday. Yes, it is. And I've got a question for you. What story are you telling the world and are you telling yourself? We're going to discuss that here on Turn Up Tuesdays on the Plan Your Greatness channel. Hey, we are back. We are here on Turn Up Tuesdays on the Plan Your Greatness channel. And we are asking the question this week. This is, what are you thinking week? And so we're asking the question today on Turn Up Tuesday is, what story are you telling the world and what story are you telling yourself? Now, the reason why that we're having this discussion today is I was watching a video not too long ago, and the guy that was being interviewed is by the name of David Goggins. And if you haven't heard this guy's story, I recommend that I think I'm gonna maybe put a link in the bottom, but look up David Goggins on YouTube. And more specifically, he has a book out. And the guy that was interviewing him wanted to know about a particular chapter. I think it was chapter 12 in the book, where David is talking about his initial meeting with God. This thought that he has in his head on what that meeting is going to be like. And so let me kind of set it up for you. Now imagine that you're in line. You've met your fate. You've lived this life, and you're going to meet God. So you're in this line, and you notice that everybody in the line, when they get to God, God hands them a piece of paper. And the people look at it, and there's this little interaction with God. And then God lets them keep the paper, and they walk off, and they go off into heaven. And so, David said that he was just thinking, okay, what's going to be on that piece of paper? And he said by the time he gets up there, God hands him the paper, and he started reading the paper. And the paper says, David Goggins, best-selling author, 195 pounds, Navy SEAL, set all kind of records, did all kind of great things. And then he looks at the paper and he just looks at himself and he says, hey, you got the right name on there, but that's not me. I'm 300 pounds. I'm fat. I'm overweight. I smoke. I just worked at an eco lab and, just doing security work. I didn't do much of anything. And he said, God looked at him and said, yeah, that's what you should have done. And so David then goes and tells the interviewer, he says, that's what happened when he decided to turn his life around. He said he had this vision in his mind that God was going to have that piece of paper. And what he wanted to do was, when he met God, God was going to look at that piece of paper and go, oh man, David Goggins, right? Dude, you are a piece of work. He said, I had your life all set out for you. You were going to do this. You were going to be this great. He said, but you know what, son? He said, you had me filling in stuff as it went along. I had this great story, but you've outworked you've outworked the story. You've outworked your destiny. And so it got me to thinking. It said, okay, so it asked, it really just got me going and saying, what story are you telling? And I'm asking myself, because anytime I'm making these videos and I'm asking you guys the questions, I'm thinking of myself and I'm saying, Carlton, what story are you telling? What is going to be your conversation when you go before your maker or whatever that situation may be, whether it's true or not? What is going to be the conversation that you are going to have? And so I have to take you guys back, all the way back when I went to prison. And at that moment, I had a very near revelation as far as an experience like David's. I started looking around and I started asking myself, like, okay, you're in prison. You started out special ed student, barely graduated from high school. You had the opportunity to play professional baseball, but once that was over, you basically went back to zero. So then you really had no direction, no purpose. You basically became a tool to the world, and that sank you into depression, eventually homelessness, incarceration, and now here you are. So what are you going to do? And my mind was just going and it was thinking, well, this is at this point, this is my life. The story, has been written, and maybe like David Goggins, maybe God had this beautiful idea of life for me, but I was actually destroying it. So thinking of David Goggins and thinking of the question that I'm asking you all, what story are you telling? I got busy. at that point, because when you think about it, as far as just like looking forward in your life, okay, what story are you telling? If you are saying that I'm telling a great story, you're looking forward. Now, in the story, if you're going to look backwards, that means you're only going to look backwards as an opportunity to say, I'm not going to make the mistakes going forward. And the examples we have, the stock market, we had that just horrific 1929 stock market crash. We've had minor crashes, but we've had nothing on a national level that rivals that. Bad relationships. You look back at bad relationships, you should never, as I tell my kids, you should never make the same mistake twice. If something happens in a relationship, that same situation, if it comes up, you should know how to resolve it. Business deals. Ali versus Liston. I mean, as far as when you're telling the story, it's only going to be worth telling if you win. Same thing. Buster Douglas, the U.S. hockey team. All these stories, when you are telling your story, don't nobody want to hear it unless you are telling a story of winning. Now, again, in your head, if you're going to go back and look at bad stories, you're going to use those bad stories as an opportunity to, I'm not going to make that mistake again. So I'm going to move forward and I'm going to improve from that. So again, what story are you telling? And what do you want that conversation to be when you meet your maker? Do you want them to say, yep, look at this great life. Yep, you fulfilled it. Or you want to do like David Goggins. And that's kind of my vision, is that when I get there, they go, I had this whole plan out for you, brother, but you broke the mold. You had me changing stuff, erasing. I just imagine him with his scrolls, just scribbling, and he going to pull it up in the air, and there's going to be like a big old hole in it because he kept having to erase because I kept doing more stuff. Now, that brings to mind a video that I saw not too long ago. It's called Up in the Air. It's a movie. And the main character in the movie is George Clooney. Now, let me set that up for you. George Clooney is a part of a company and he's a part of the HR department, and the company is downsizing. Just think in terms of like 2008, where the stock market crashed, companies were just dumping people all over the place. Well, George Clooney is a part of that group that's traveling all around the country and meeting with people and letting them know nicely that we're about to fire you. And usually the people at the bottom, they're all worried about it, but those are the least of concerns. The first thing a company is going to start chopping are the high income individuals that there may be some slight form of duplication, or they say, well, you know what, we can get this one person that can do maybe a couple of little jobs. And so they'll chop these other people off. And in the movie, he's sitting down with a guy and he's explaining to the guy, or he asks him the question. He says, you know why why kids like professional athletes? And the guy goes, yeah, because they get to sleep with lingerie models. And George says, no, that's why we like professional athletes. Now, he said the reason why kids like professional athletes is because they live their dreams. And then he goes back to the guy and he said, I'm looking at your resume and I'm seeing that you went to culinary art school. So you learned how to cook in a fine restaurant. And he says, and George Clooney then further and goes and says, how much did they start paying you? How much did they offer you to give up on your dreams to get started with this company? And the guy just shakes his head and goes, $27,000. And then George looks at him and he says, when were you going to stop and start living your dreams? And the guy just kind of looked at him like, man. And George then goes on and says, you know what? I've seen hundreds, maybe thousands of guys like yourself that work at a job, making good money, but never really quite living their life. He said, you may be looking at this as just, it's going to be a desperate opportunity. He said, but I want you to look at this as an opportunity to take control of your life and live your dreams. And so what I'm saying is that a part of that process is telling your own story. And if you're out there telling a story about your failures and what you can't do and what you haven't done, then you're wanting people to support something that you don't even like and that you don't even want to happen. So my suggestion to you, as what happened to me when I was locked up in prison, I could have continued telling that story that I was in prison, that I came from all these different backgrounds and troubled childhood and all this other stuff. I had no education. My baseball career was over. I'd gone through a divorce. I could have continued to tell that story, but I just looked around. I just shrugged my shoulders and I said, you know what? I'm going to stop telling that story. I said, I don't know exactly what I can be, but what I know is I'm going to think of things that I possibly could be. I could possibly be a college graduate. I could possibly be. It's possible for me to be a business owner. It's possible for me to be a motivational speaker. It's possible for me to be an author. All those things are possible. You know, because I've learned over time that if I sit over here and tell myself, man, you're this, you're that, you're this, your mind is going to look around and it's going, you're not that. I see what you want to be, but you're not that. But if I talk to myself and I say, well, you know what? I know I'm not an author, but you know what? It's possible. My mind absolutely is in 100% agreement. Your mind goes, yeah, it's possible. You're not there yet, but it's possible. And that's the place that I worked with. That was the story I was telling. These are all the things that I see that are possible for me. And I start working toward that possibility. And here I am years later, a college grad, a business owner, an author, a motivational speaker, and I can't even tell you exactly what else is next. But I know it's just, there's a lot of good things out there. And if you walk in that space, start changing your story slightly, you're absolutely planning your greatness. All right. So now the call to action is, think of it in terms of the question that we're asking. What story are you telling? So the plan of action is, look at the story. Now, here's what it is. Go to your peers, go to your closest friends and ask them, say, hey, what story am I telling? What am I constantly talking about? What is my behavior producing? What is the story that I'm telling in my life? And you want them to be honest with you, because a lot of times we are telling a story that we are absolutely fully unaware of. So ask your peers, ask your friends, your closest people, ask them what story you're telling, and then go about the business of saying that, you know what, I need to change that. And it's possible for you to change it. All right. So make sure you're hitting the like button, the share button, subscribe button, hit that notification bell. We're also on Instagram. We're also on Twitter. We're also on Facebook. Usually I'm posting things on on this channel, and then I'm sending it out to all the other ones. So whatever platform that you're actually hearing me or seeing me, it's coming from the YouTube channel. So then go ahead and subscribe to that. But if you're on any of the channels, just look for little notices on how you can keep up with it. All right. So as I leave every day, I'm going to leave you with this. Plan your greatness. You know why? Yeah, because no one else will. I will see you all next Tuesday on Turn Up Tuesday. You guys have a great week. And I'll see you then.
Was all alone. No one knew.